Here we go. Hello. Hi. Welcome to our webinar for this evening, Behind the Scenes. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chelsea Deal. I'm the founder of My College Audition, and this is...
I'm Bevan O'Gara. I'm a producer and director. I'm currently freelance for the first time in like 20 years. Haha.
And a new mama, which is the most...
Yes. I'm
New...
mom employed.
Cool. So let's go through some basic webinar things just to make sure everyone's comfy with the platform. But at this point, everyone is probably a Zoom pro, so I'm not too worried about that. But let's go through this quickly. So making the most of the webinar. First off, ask questions. Please ask questions. These questions are private and they're only viewable by the host, which is myself. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them over there and we will stop and get to them when we get to them, or we will come back to them at the end. Them being private allows you to ask any question. You don't have to feel like anything is a stupid question, even though in this wild process there are no stupid questions, which you will realize. You can feel free to chat with us as well. That's viewable to everyone, so feel free to send those over and we will chat with you throughout. If there's a technology glitch, something happens, I disappear, Bevan disappears, the whole thing shuts down, who knows? We will return. You can always return with the link that was sent to you in your reminder email, and you will receive a replay video. So please don't share this with anyone outside your family or forward it along. We appreciate it. So let's get to why you guys are actually here. It's not just to listen to me talk about Zoom. So tonight we are going to be talking about college list, portfolios, interview strategies, all of that good stuff for non-performance theater majors. So if you're interested in directing, stage management, design tech, or any other theater related majors, you guys made it to the right spot. You're in the right place. So this webinar is going to help you learn about how to get the degree you want, what you can use for that degree later in life, post college, and all of that good stuff. So that's it, Bevan. Did I miss any of that? Did we get to the question?
I don't think so. I think we can dive into some of the questions. Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, here we go. Here are all the questions.
Yes.
Why don't I run through them once all the way through, and then we will stop and actually go through them, and Bevan can answer them for you
Yeah.
guys. So, what are some of the potential majors you could pursue as a non-performance major? I'm also interested in acting. Can I double major? What is the difference between a BA and a BFA? What is expected in a portfolio? What are they looking for in the interview? And how best can I prepare? What are some potential jobs you can pursue after graduation if you get a non-performance degree? Those are our questions. Bevan, let's get to it. So,
Great.
first question, what are some of the potential majors that you can pursue as a
Yeah.
non-performance major?
So we'll talk a little bit about this too when we talk about BA versus BFA, but things like, directing, dramaturgy, playwriting, theater education, theater management are areas that you can study. Stage management, technical theater, technical management, technical production, production management. Then there's the whole litany of design. There's, costume design, sound design, lighting design, set design, costume construction, costume crafts, costume engineering, sound engineering versus sound design. There are quite a litany of different ways that you can what your interests are. And I realize that that's one thing that we're going to talk a lot about in terms of your interview and your portfolio is knowing the terms and what each of those terms means. But just want to say, like, there's a lot in there and there's a lot of stuff. They mean different things to different programs, right? So we'll talk a little about understanding the difference between some of those things. But with each of those programs, you can get a BFA in one of those areas. You can get a BA. Some of them are, a BFA in theater studies, right? Which then is a focus in design. Or you can get a BFA in lighting design, or you can get a BFA in costume crafts and artisans. So there's quite a wide variety of ways in which you can pursue that degree. And what each of those means is something that's very different to each school in a lot of ways. So one of the big important things as you're looking at these programs is to ask that question about what that degree means to that program. Um, One also thing that I wanted, before I forget to say it, in terms of the BFA versus the BA and some of these programs, you do not need a BFA if you are thinking of pursuing an MFA. That is something that's really important to think about when you're looking at these programs, just because you're not necessarily ready to commit to a life in the arts, because yes, it is a life in the arts, and that your intention is to get that MFA later on. You do not need to approach this thinking, I absolutely need this degree. Um, yeah, so and there are a lot of programs that combine, say, stage management and production management, or stage management and technical theater. Some schools do a degree in just design, and then you have to focus in costumes, set, lights. There are even scenic artists, which are the people who paint the sets, right? Again, knowing the terms. So if painting is something that you're really interested in, there is a career in scenic arts, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about getting a degree in. But yes, that is true. My brother at one point wanted to get a great degree in glass blowing. He didn't, but he now pursues that as a hobby. So something about scenic painting that whenever I think about getting a degree in scenic painting, I think about my brother trying to get a glass blowing degree.
I'm sure that exists. I mean,
Oh, it does. Franklin
yeah.
Pierce.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Yeah, so it's quite a variety of different degrees, and a lot of, the important work that you do in prepping for this is really this idea of knowing the terms, knowing what it is that is, because when you're in high school, you may be, working as a stage manager, but you may actually be doing the job of a director. Or as a director, you may ultimately be doing the job of a stage manager. So it's really, and a lot of schools will, in the interview process, help figure out which area or what you really are. But that's a lot of the work that, knowing what it is that you're actually applying for, because of what suits you, right? You have to pick the program and the pursuit that actually suits who you are.
Hmm. Cool. Great. So for the kids that are interested, they know they like to perform, but they're not certain that's it. And they want to possibly double major or get a minor. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe how those interweave with each other at
Yeah.
school?
Well, first off, I want to say that if you are interested in pursuing just a general degree in theater arts, and you are interested in being an actor, that is, or knowing about acting, that is fantastic. As a professional director, dramaturg, stage manager, you need to understand being an actor. You need, as a stage manager, if you get into a BFA program, you may take a voice and speech class with the actors, just so you know. And I remember, like, when I was in that class, the stage manager's like, why are we here? But now professionally, ultimately, all of them are like, oh, this is so we understand what it is that these actors and directors are going through.
Right.
Designers don't necessarily need to do that. But if you're interested, I'll be frank, it depends on the school, and it depends on what the degree is that you're looking at. If that is something that you're interested in looking at, you really want to be looking at programs that have either a BA or a BFA in theater studies or theater arts or drama. Those are sort of the areas that really allow you to sort of sculpt your own degree, that allow you to create a focus. And also this is a good area to talk about investigating your minors,
Mhm.
right? Like a minor degree. If you were really interested in Shakespeare, say, Southern Oregon University has a Shakespeare minor that allows you to focus on Shakespearean acting. My personal favorite minor is in theatrical entrepreneurship, which is University of Michigan.
Love that.
I want to go. I really wish I
Sign me up.
understood
So good.
theatrical entrepreneurship.
I love that.
Um, but it's just that's also an area where you could get that. I will say, if you are getting a BFA and they have a BFA, and you are interested in acting and they have a BFA acting program, know that their focus will be on the BFA actors. So if you really want to be an actor, there are a lot of other things that make up who an actor is. So not you don't necessarily need to have a BFA in acting to be an actor. But if you really, really want to put your primary focus on acting, uh, and you want to take a class in theater studies or get a degree in theater studies or theater arts, know that if you're pursuing a BFA, the focus will most likely in those programs be on the BFA actors. Would you say that's true in your experience too,
Yeah.
Chelsea?
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to explore minors and make sure that you're at a liberal arts school where you can kind of dip your toes into lots of different things. Um, but I would say, yeah, for someone who's primarily interested in acting, go for it. And if you want a little bit of flexibility, maybe go the liberal arts school route so you have
Yeah.
those opportunities. It'll just be a tiny bit harder at a conservatory to fit that into your schedule. It's doable, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say go
Yeah.
the minor route then.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to throw out a little bit, particularly for the designers who also might not necessarily be thinking of acting, but just that thinking of minors as a different way of approaching their degree, that, and we'll talk a little bit about this when we talk about careers. There, knowing early on that you won't necessarily have a full-time paying job in this area. I'm not saying that to scare anyone off. I only say it because it's something, if you go in informed to your degree, it can be very useful. You know, taking a graphic design class, taking a video class, you know, utilizing the fact that you have multiple interests and preparing for a career that could be very multifaceted, that's a really good way of approaching your degree, and inherently taking that moment as you're thinking about what degree to take and what school to go to know to ask some of those questions to make sure that you are able to do things that would support yourself and your life and your interests beyond the 4 years that you'll be in college.
Hmm. 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 Woo! So we sort of, I mean, we kind of talked BA versus BFA. Let's a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk a
Do it.
little bit more of that. So I think the big question that you've got here, right, is what is the difference between a BA and a BFA? And I know that this is something that everyone asks all the time. The difference is one word: workload. Right?
Yeah.
You know, a BFA. You know, if you're in high school and you're looking at these things, your theater is your hobby.
Hmm.
If you're going to come in and start to pursue a BFA, it's no longer a hobby. This is your life. You know, this is what you do. A BA allows you to take other classes, to explore other interests, have other activities, a sorority. I don't know why that's the one that popped into my head there,
Yes.
but something, you know, to be able to do those things, and create a larger diversity of experience. A BFA, I think the best way that it's been explained to me is, or my understanding is, it's an apprenticeship in a trade, right? You are fully immersing yourself in this area. And the best way, I think, to determine which is the right one for you is to ask yourself, what do you want your day to look like? Do you want to wake up, at 9 a.m. or, wake up and have classes from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then go into rehearsal from 7 to 10 at night? And all of those classes are all theater. You're doing voice and speech, you're doing, directing one, you're doing, design. Then, do you want that to be your full day, 6 days a week? Or are you really interested in taking a class in classical Greek literature? Are you interested in joining a sorority? Are you interested in being on the cheerleading team? Wow, I have a really strong focus and so, sort of funny right there.
College.
um, you know, are, how do you want your life and your day to day to look? That's really a good way of assessing where you want to spend your time. And the other thing that I think is really important when you're approaching any sort of theater degree, BFA, BA, and this is particularly true for directors, playwrights, dramaturgs, people interested in that, but it's true of designers as well. And just make sure I circle back with how this is true of designers too, is, are you ready to create your own opportunities? right? That if, you're paying a lot of money to go to get, your directing degree, your playwriting degree, and no one on the faculty is handing you that show. There are very few schools that are going to do that.
Mhm.
There are a lot of that is built in, obviously, but if you want, but you can be in charge of your own education. You can be in charge of your own opportunities. So with any of these degrees, it's really important to think about how you want to do that. Is there an empty classroom where I can, direct this, 20-minute show that I really want to do, or put together this cabaret? Am I a playwright who wants to get a bunch of friends together and create a Zoom? Um, Most of what you're getting in any of those programs is a group of collaborators, right? So then, how do you use that group of collaborators and create your own opportunities in your pursuit of this degree?
Mhm.
Oh, and connecting it back to designers.
There you go. You did it
Yeah,
yourself.
I did it myself. I'm trying to challenge that postpartum brain, Chelsea.
Yes, you did it. Doing it.
uh, Being aware of what the rest, I remember when I was in college, there was a really clear divide between like the director actor people and the designers. And I know that this is true in a lot of programs. But the directors who were the most successful were those who got to know the designers, and the designers who are the most successful are those who got to know the directors and the actors.
Mhm.
That's how work are created after your university, is to make those connections, those collaborators, those relationships that you're creating. But as designers, realizing like, oh, hey, this playwright that I know is putting together this audio play that, I have no experience in designing sound for an audio play. Maybe I'll just raise my hand and offer, to do that with them and collaborate with them. Oh, this, young director is putting up this 10-minute piece, whatever, in this classroom over here. Maybe I can, design the set, build the set, paint the set.
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
All of those things. Yeah. So no matter which degree, BA, BFA, that you're pursuing, it's really important to understand that a lot of your education is about creating your own opportunities in any of these areas, in any of these fields.
Especially right now, right?
Especially right now. Yeah, especially right now. Yeah, and that's creating that community over the internet is yeah,
Mm-hmm.
challenging, but
Yep.
important. Yeah.
These kids can do it. I believe in them.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's carry on.
Yeah.
So, portfolios. I feel like this is a buzzword with some people. Talk to me about what's expected in a portfolio.
Yeah.
Obviously, it varies a little bit depending on major, degree, all of
Yeah.
that. Um, but generally, for a high schooler, on a various spectrum of maybe just got started, doesn't really have any credits, to someone who's been doing this a long time and they're the one person at their high school that's doing whatever. So, it's obviously a wide range. So, what would you
Yeah.
recommend in that range?
Well, the big thing with the portfolio is it is a visual aid for conversation starters at your interview. You know, most people who send in a portfolio and who meet the requirements for that school are going to get an interview. For most, this is a generalization, but a pretty accurate one. That most of what you're trying to do with that is figure out a way to talk about yourself, right? It doesn't have to be the most beautiful photos in the entire world, but it does have to help you to articulate, or it does have to demonstrate passion.
Mhm.
It's really important, for if you're a designer. And this is sort of tricky because it's like, this is the big overall thing, right? Is that the portfolio is talking about, is the instrument to talk about yourself and to talk about the plays that you've worked on and the experience you have.
Mhm.
Most people who are interested in pursuing these degrees in any way, director, playwright, dramaturg, most people do not have a plethora of experience. They just don't. And so much of what they're looking for in that interview is, do you have the skills to be shaped into through the program? Do you have that passion? Do you have that interest? Again, we talked a little bit about the beginning. Do you have that knowledge of the role that, and I say that knowledge, like if you come in into an interview and you talk like a stage manager, but you're applying for a directing program, they may move you around, and say, actually, what you want to do is this.
Mhm.
But can you talk about what it is that you're doing, right? And let's say, like, so there are sort of two different high school experiences. In some, like, this is again gross generalization, but
Mhm.
there are like big schools with a lot of money where the teachers do everything, right? You're going to have beautiful pictures. That is not a superior portfolio necessarily. It's a great portfolio, but it won't necessarily do much for you at the interview ultimately, if when you have these beautiful pictures that show all these gorgeous productions, and you can't say, when they go, well, what did you do on this show?
Mhm.
You can't really answer that,
Mhm.
right? And it doesn't have to be, oh, I designed the lights, oh, I designed the set. It can be, I built that portal. And in the show, that portal was used for X, Y, and Z.
Mhm. Mhm.
That was, and it was really important. And I got so excited because, it was my favorite moment in the show when this got to happen. And I felt so proud that I built the portal when the butler walked through it to tell everyone that he had solved the case and not the inspector. Um, I have really weird examples
That's
tonight.
super specific. I feel like,
Right?
yeah.
um, that, and that you're proud of that. Why was it important to the production? What did you contribute to that show? So when you're putting the portfolio together, that's what you want to think about. You want to think about what your contribution was to the show, and how you would ultimately want to talk about that. So like, again, say like you're at a smaller school where you literally only had 4 lights, right? And you're interviewing to be for a lighting design program. What did you use those 4 lights to do? And why was that? And where did you put them? And why did you put them there?
Mhm.
They want you to demonstrate that you're thinking. They want you to demonstrate that you're problem solving. Um, and we won't get too much into this tonight because we don't quite have the time to talk about it, but also for directing, and this is a little different than most other places, there are places that actually have a special portfolio that you need to prepare, where either they'll choose a script or you choose a script, and you need to create image boards, you need to create soundboards. NYU is big on this. There's a ton of questions that they have, and that the things that they want you to prepare. So like that's a sort of special case. This is sort of, right now we're talking about just like more generally portfolios. Um, but thinking about, what you put in it, did you act as a director? Did you act in a play? Put an image of you acting in the play, or put in a cast photo, right? So you can talk about, I was, I played the TV producer in this big musical when they did this, and I only walked on to say one line, but the night that I did it, one of the actors forgot to be on stage, and I had to run on and improvise something to keep the story moving along.
Mhm.
you know yes, think about what you contribute. If you are interested in playwriting, did you write something for your literary magazine at your school, that you can put that in there? If you're a designer of some kind, do you draw things? Do you have an interest in drawing? Do you have an interest in collaging? Do you have an interest in photography? What are all of those things? One that sort of demonstrates um, a little bit of who you are, but also that you can talk about, and that you can talk about passionately, because that's it. That they're looking for who. Do you know who you are, or can you talk about yourself in some sort of educated way,
Mhm.
and can you talk about the play sort of an educated way? um, yeah, do you have any questions about
No, I'd say, and
that?
then for this crazy
Yeah.
year, what's going on? Nothing, right?
Mhm.
Nothing's happening this year. Um, so this will be a little bit different,
Yeah.
since a lot of the interviews, will be happening online.
Yeah.
So, are there any suggestions of, like, should they make a website, like a free website? Like, what could be
Yeah.
helpful in addition to uploading things, whatever on whatever platform, accepted
Yeah.
or wherever it is.
I mean, a website is amazing if you have the time, and the dexterity to do that.
Mhm.
I think that's a really interesting suggestion. The thing that I can sense though that like a website would feel like that is a lot of stuff that I need to do.
Mhm.
It doesn't need to be that much. It can be a home page, an about page, and a work page. It does and
Yeah.
like a resume page, and even then, like that could be reduced into to one main page that has maybe two tabs.
Mhm.
That's a really great way of approaching it. What's nice about that too is it shows that you're diligent, that you're willing to put the work in, which are things that they also are looking for. um, that's in terms of preparing the portfolio, that they want to know that you're going to make the effort, right? So putting a website together is a great way to do that. Putting a PowerPoint presentation type thing together that you could send with your application that then you could use to talk through as a prompt in your interview, that would be great. Yeah, there. And the thing, I was texting a little bit with a friend who is actually going to be one of the adjudicators, right, for a college this year.
Mhm.
And he said, I said, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to anyone trying to pursue this year? And he's like, just understand that we're winging it too.
Yeah.
That
Right.
this is a year, and I think that opens it up to be creative. Do you have an idea of how you can present yourself differently? If you're a sound designer, can you put, an audio play together yourself? Are you a playwright? Can you put an audio play experience together yourself this year? It doesn't, and I think that's also, it doesn't just have to be school stuff. That idea of creating your own opportunities can start now. And that's, yeah, it's the, I think for everyone, the best way of approaching this year about everything is just viewing it as an opportunity and rather than a setback. So how are you using this moment to create your own new opportunity? How can you show how creative you are? And or frankly not, if you want to just put something together in the normal, like here are scanned pages. You want to do it well, you want to put it together and it wants to tell a story. You can think about things like putting the first thing, like the thing you're most proud of first. It doesn't have to be the greatest pictures. It can just be something. Maybe you even, if you don't feel great about the pictures, can you write in 3 sentences under it what your role was on it and what, why you're excited about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Yeah, we got a question that was for a website. Are there free ways to do that? And there totally are. Obviously, there's all these like upgrades and things you can do on these, but I'll put them in the chat. Weebly, Wix, there's a handful of others, and those are great starting ones. And a lot of them actually have like actor performer templates that make it super easy, and you can just
yeah,
drag and
I'm
drop.
sure they have designer templates too now.
Hmm. So I'll put that in the chat. Good question, but there are definitely free ways you can do that. At least a starting point, and then
That's
we'll
a great question.
tell
Yeah.
you on other stuff.
Yeah. And again, and that doesn't necessarily need to be how you do this.
No.
I would look at what the school is asking,
Mhm.
and sort of see and look at what the guidelines are that they're putting forward. And there's no problem in like calling or shooting an email and asking that question. Is it worth me? And you might be putting 3 or 4 different iterations of something together this year.
Yeah.
Someone might accept a website, someone might really want it to be, in this format that they're putting together. Some schools do have very specific formats that they're looking for, like we were talking about with the NYU directing program,
Mhm.
um, that they have certain things that they definitely want you to do. Uh, yeah, so just look before you spend too much time looking for your own website, look at the programs that you're applying for
Yeah.
and figure out what it is that they're asking. So,
Faux show. I think any
yeah.
of the stuff that you work on in this, if this is like a lifelong, this is what you want to do. I mean, and it's free and you have time during quarantine,
Yeah. The truth is, yeah, you're gonna use it,
you're gonna use
and if
it.
you've got it now and you've got the domain, you've got your name as that domain now, not a bad time.
That's a great graduation present. That's a great
It's true.
present. Ask your parents to buy your domain.
Yeah.
Um, that's really helpful. And domain literally like yourname.com.
Yeah.
Um, anyway,
Yes.
all right, let's move on because the interview is a big one. So,
Yeah.
interview questions, and this would happen on their scheduled date where they present a portfolio or talk
Yeah.
through it, whatever. So, what are they? What are some tips to prepare for that, and
Yeah.
a couple questions people can be prepared for?
Yeah. Yeah. We talked a little bit about some of this stuff with the portfolio is, knowing how to talk about yourself. When you're talking about, when you're looking through the portfolio, when you're doing the interview, you don't need to recap the play. You want to talk about what you did on it, and you want to talk about like the themes of the play, the ideas of the play, the moment in the play that you thought was the most exciting, and why you thought it was really interesting. What they're looking for is, are you connected to the work? Right? Are you connected? Are you thinking about the work in a real deep way, and not just like, oh, this is cool, this is fun? They want to know that you're really excited about this, and that you can, most of what their job is over the next 4 years is to teach you how to think in depthly over this, but they want to see that spark. They want to see that potential. They want to see someone who's curious, right? Who's going to be unearthing, because that's in any of these fields, frankly, in dramaturgy, directing, any sort of design, theater education, curiosity is key. Are you going to sort of mine into everything? Are you going to, I always think of directing as like, I'm a detective. I loved Sherlock Holmes as a kid, and I always think of directing as like, oh, I'm like unearthing the mystery of, the speckled band,
Yeah, yeah.
so that's the kind of thing that they want to know, that you have the impulse to do. Uh, One thing that is real, like, these are sort of silly things, but you don't want to show, even on Zoom, you're not going to show up in your pajamas, guys. Like, that's just not,
You
uh,
could wear a blouse like I am and have
yeah,
pajama bottoms on the bottom, which I feel
exactly.
like
Exactly.
business on the top.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, exactly. No one knows what's happening
no one knows.
below the computer.
No one knows.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend a little bit about this a couple months ago, and when I was asking him how his interviews went, and he was like, I had one kid show up in his pajamas, and he just sat down, pajama. He walked to the camera with his pajamas on.
Right,
And he was a smart kid, but that showed me he didn't care very much
right,
about this. So,
right,
you know,
right,
what
right,
am I?
right, right.
Um, and this is like, with any interview, eye contact is important.
Mhm.
It's weird you're going to be doing all of this via Zoom. So like learning how to do that, and not, looking over here and doing all of this, but like looking at the screen. Like those are sort of simple things. In terms of what questions you should be prepared to get, like every school is going to be different. A thing to know is like, they're not trying to trip you up, right? There's not going to be a trick question. It's really, they're just trying to see how curious, and see if you can talk about these plays, these things. But some things that, they might ask you is like, what is your favorite theater experience? What are your favorite plays? What are the plays that you're reading right now? If they ask you like, what is a formative theater experience you've had, specifically, what is it about that production that makes you interested in being a director, a designer, a stage manager? And really, like, so then, like, can you identify what what they're trying to figure out is like, what do you understand your role to be at that? Another question that they might ask you about is like, what are your hopes for your career as you enter this? That might be something, that's sort of a different way of approaching the, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years question, which frankly no one's asking anymore. No one got that answer right on the test
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Oh,
Um,
oh,
yeah, so true. No one got that right. Why a BFA? If it's an interview for a BFA, why a BFA? And frankly, if you're not doing a BFA and you're doing a BA, Doing an interview is also still a great thing. If you can get an interview with an alumni of the program, that is really, really helpful. And I always in terms of interviews, in terms of prep for any of this, this is stuff that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, no matter what you do with your life. Interview skills are so important. And it's just something to practice. It's just something to work on. I just recently had an experience where I got to observe two different people interviewing for a pretty important position. And it was so clear who should get the job, but they didn't audition. They didn't interview very well, but the other person interviewed amazingly. Mm-hmm. And it's part of the thing in college, like part of their job is to like sort of see through that a little bit and sort of see but if you're passionate, if you're excited about it, it's just such a good skill to practice. I think the other thing that's really important in thinking about the interview that I hope takes a little bit of the edge off for anyone who's thinking about doing this is that this is your time to figure out if this is the degree you want, if this is the program you want. And you may go in knowing 100% or 110% this is the school I want. But when you start talking to them and about asking some key questions to them, because it's not just about the questions that they're going to ask you. It's really important that you have questions for them as well. So think about that, and one of the best questions I think that you can ask is, what kind of a student does your school want to attract? Right? Because you can understand a little bit if you fit into that, if you want to fit into that. But yes, the other thing is the opposite side with the interview is knowing that you have the opportunity, you have the power to ask some of those questions yourself. So take it. And come in with 2 or 3 questions that will really help you determine if this is where you want to spend the next 4 years of your life.
Groovy.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, here's my favorite pro tip. Sorry, I almost forgot.
No.
Thank you notes. Thank you notes. Super important. Very few people do it, and it impresses people a lot at these. If you make sure you get the name of your auditor, your interviewer, and send them a thank you note. Do it as when you get in the car, when you get on the train, when you get on the plane right after, and put it in the mail that next day. You can send it to the office at the theater, Kara, this person, care of. Really, that is something that really leaves an impression, right? And reminds them of you later. Mm-hmm. So that's my favorite pro tip.
Yep. And if you're not getting on a plane and you're just getting out of a Zoom call.
True. That's right. Duh. Oh my gosh. Where do I think I'm going?
That's so hopeful, Bevan. And I really hope they are.
This is why this is about creating skills that you'll keep with you for the rest of your life and not just for your college audition.
Yes, thank you notes are important. And if you, at MCA, we have a whole audition journal, which anyone who works with us and kind of take your notes, and it's the same thing for a directing major, stage manager, whatever. You should be taking notes after you leave an interview or something like that and reflect on how it went, what questions got brought up, what questions you still have. Things like that are going to be really helpful, and you'll meet these people again. That's what I always say. Even if you don't go to this school or you don't choose that school, you're going to meet these people again somewhere along the way. It's going to happen. It's a really small theater world.
Really small theater world.
Yeah. The better you leave that first impression, the better. Cool. And then last fun question is, and this is, a weird time to be talking about jobs in the performing arts world, but what are some potential jobs you can pursue after graduation? I get asked that a lot for acting in musical theater. It's what if it's not on the stage? What else is there with this? And obviously there's people do all sorts of things. But hit me with it. What do you think?
Well, I think it's actually what is the degree that you're pursuing, right? It's understanding what is your education in, and your education is in being a storyteller. it's in presentation, it's in communication. No matter what, if you're an actor, if you're like, because designers, you need to know how to talk about your work. So it's about presentation, right? Every lighting designer needs to know what the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story is to understand about progression over the course of the play, right? So what you're actually getting is a degree in storytelling. It's a degree in presentation. It's a degree in communication. You'll learn what it is to be telling a story and what requires to present it, right? So like, what do you use that in? A lot of things. Marketing, communications, law school, right? Like presenting a case. It's all, all razzle dazzle, as my father, the lawyer, would say. Educator, business people, Chelsea deal.
Me?
Yeah. Graphic design, architecture, I have a friend of my husband's who got a degree. He's a lighting designer, got a degree in lighting design. What he does now is he designs lights for inside restaurants and hotel lobbies, right? Like someone actually has to go in and like tell you where to put those lamps, which is like kind of crazy. And it's like, I think if I knew now what I knew then, that might be where I pursued my life, because that just sounds so fascinating to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like my husband has a degree in theater, and what he does right now is he writes for Wirecutter, which is at the New York Times. So he like reviews products, right? So
Right.
he's trying to tell stories all the time about space heaters and air conditioners.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites too is like, I have a friend who got a degree in stage management, who is now, she's basically, the way she puts it, she's like, I'm stage managing research scientists, right? So like people who are doing these massive research projects over long periods of time, someone needs to be there to organize them, to keep them on task, to figure out how they're going to write the grant for it, to tell the story about how they're going to raise money for this mental health issue that they're doing. She's also like coordinating all the different groups of things, that how people need to collaborate and coordinate. Yeah, and she has a BFA in stage management. So now what she does is, she said, I'm a stage manager for research, for medical people in research. There are all sorts of different ways that are very unconventional that you can use this degree for. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, but knowing going into your degree that that's stuff that you're interested in. Like, can you take a class in architecture to learn a little bit? Can you take a class in some videography? Although I don't think young people need classes in that anymore, because they probably just do it on their iPhone from like the time they're 3. Harper's already making her own videos, I'm
Yeah.
sure, right?
My daughter, yeah, she's got her own. No. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
no.
No, not yet.
They know how to do these things.
Not yet.
But yeah, like how can you also get some of those skills while, if you know that going into your degree, you can sort of be prepared for some of that too, on the other end of it.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And obviously the goal dream is you do exactly what you went to school for,
Yes.
and that can happen. But I think what I always say to the performing end of, this is that there's downtime, and how you fill your downtime ultimately, I think, will determine how happy or how fulfilled you are holistically, right? Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes people don't know how to fill that downtime in a way that makes them feel happy. And, if you're not happy in that end, I think sometimes it affects the stuff that you went to school for, what you really want to be doing, right? If you are sleeping through auditions because you're doing something you don't like at night, that becomes hard, right? So finding a way to meld exactly what you want to be doing with other potential jobs that you're probably really good at because of the degree you got, I think can be really helpful. And it's
Yeah.
hard to think about that when you're 17 or 18 pursuing this, but even if there's like a moment or a flicker of something that you're like, oh, I actually like that,
Yeah.
take a class in it, I think
Yeah.
is what you're kind of saying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And talk to other people, talk to other students, talk to the people that are there, take it. You guys are doing such a wonderful thing with connecting the students that are already in some of these programs with people who are, pursuing it. Know to ask those questions. I think the key to life is asking questions, no matter what you do. And I think a degree in theater also teaches you how to ask the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Look at all these questions. 7:45. We did it. So here's just a
Whew.
couple tips and tricks, but you did it, Bev. You got through
Yeah.
all. So just a couple little things we'll throw in there, and Bevan has touched on all of these, but you should prepare for a digital process this year. Get comfortable with how you read on camera. Get comfy talking to someone on the other end, and I keep telling people be aware of how you present yourself on Zoom because you can fall into Zoom land, and Zoom land is a faraway place in sweatpants where you just sink. So pay attention to that. Use your interview time to figure out if this program is right for you. That's a big tip from Bevan. So um, just as you always feel like you are performing for them or auditioning for them or interviewing for them, they also should be doing the same for you. You've paid to be there, paid your app fee, take advantage of the time.
It's better to spend the however much it is to apply for that school and to do some things to prepare for it and realize this is not where I want to be than
Yep.
spending tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds
Oh,
of
real.
thousands of dollars on a degree.
Oh, real.
Right.
And then the last tip is your spot to lose, and they want you to do well, like Bevan said. So don't be the kid that shows up in your pajamas. Show up ready to rock and be prepared and show them
They
what you got.
want it to be you, because if it's you, their job is done.
And then they can get off Zoom for the
Yeah.
day. Um, cool. So if you are new to MCA and you have no idea who I am and no idea who Bevan is, welcome. You can, if this is an area that you feel like you are headed, or you have more questions, or you want someone to make sure that your college list is realistic and filled with reaches and matches and safeties, and kind of just make a plan, you can schedule a time with Bevan to chat about all of this. It's a consultation. She will get to know you and just kind of, figure out the best path for you and what majors you should be going for and schools and all that. So that is mycollegeedition.com/non-performance coaching. I will put that into the chat. But any last questions or thoughts or anything you want to throw their way, Bevan?
You can do it, and this is, again, it's all about asking the right questions and figuring out if this is the right place for you and if this is the right career path for you. And that's it.
You're going to crush it. You're going to do great.
Yeah.
So I hope if we don't know you, come join us, come be a part of the family. Bevan would love to work with you and help you get to your dream school. And with that, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you.
tonight. Thank you, Bevan.
Thanks, everybody.
Talk to you soon. So
Okay.
long, farewell,
Auf
goodbye.
Wiedersehen. Adieu.
Bye.